conditions that our people have ever faced, and we know that, well, we're reaching the point of no return, and we know that we have to regain control of our lives and how we live, where we live, and for us in Hawaii, it's very important. Um, we have a strong political independence movement, sovereignty and independence, and I was thinking about something I wanted to share with you folks. It creates an interesting dichotomy for us. I'm not sure if it's good or bad, um, but the reason why we have such a strong independence movement in Hawaii is because in 1843 the Kingdom of Hawaii had secured recognition as a sovereign nation state by the world powers at that time. And Hawaii was the first non-European country admitted into the international um, family of nations. And so, on one hand, we know, and there's a good analysis today for indigenous peoples, that nation states aren't the solution. Nation states are problematic. The concept of having a nation state is not good for the land and the environment. But on the other hand, we're occupied by a nation state, and one of the solutions for us to get unoccupied is to push to get our nation state back. One thing that we do know is that our people thrived and survived and prospered under our own kingdom. Our kingdom was short-lived from 1843 until it was overthrown in 1893. But some of the things that were important during that period of self-governance and a functioning government, a literacy rate that was unsurpassed anywhere in the world, because of some people theorize, because we had strong oral traditions, no written language. When the missionaries came with a written language, after memorizing chants that were 2,000 lines long, a few alphabets was no big deal. So Hawaiians learned how to read and write very quickly, and mastered reading and writing in a very short time, and became great literary people. So by 1875, we had the highest literacy rate in the world. I think the Kingdom of Hawaii had about a 75 to 80% literacy rate. We had over 100 Hawaiian language newspapers. So under our own governance, we thrived. Um, our lands were productive. We could produce food in a manner that was efficient, intensified with low impact to the land. We can't do that anymore. Um, like brother was saying, one of the worst things that has affected us is diet. Um, we thought in the research that I've done on this place alone, fish ponds. By the 1870s, because of mass depopulation due to disease, there was simply not enough Hawaiian population to run the fish ponds, to run the taro patches. So they fell to abandon. And I found some documentation where right here, when the Chinese immigrants came, many of them were stonemasons, and they repaired the walls of the fish pond, and they leased the fish ponds from the kingdom, and they started to sell fish to the Hawaiians. So somehow we've lost control. The massive depopulation was one of the biggest things. They estimate around contact 1778. It's debatable, but the numbers are anywhere from 500,000 to 1,000,000 Hawaiians were living in harmony with the land here. By 1893, there were only 40,000 left. So every Hawaiian that we have today is a survivor, is a descendant of the survivors. We're descendants of the last 40,000 Hawaiians who survived the onslaught of introduced diseases. And to me, that's a very important thing to remember, to think about. So we're all struggling, and I think that as it was mentioned, our solidarity and recognition of one another and being in the same struggle is so important. And so I'm so happy to meet everyone, and I hope that we get to see each other again. In closing, the most important thing that I think that we can do as indigenous peoples is reconnect with our land. I like to study politics. As the great Kwame Ture Stokely Carmichael, the former Black Panther Pan-African, has said, the answers to your problems, to social problems, will only come from your culture. So back in the 80s, we used to have this Hawaiian sovereignty slogan, keep Hawaiian lands in Hawaiian hands, and they wrote songs about it. Today, I think it's important to flip that concept, keep Hawaiian lands in Hawaiian hands. Because if we get, keep Hawaiian hands in the lands, yeah. Keep that relationship with the land. We used to say keep Hawaiian lands in Hawaiian hands, but I think that's a very Western concept. We got to keep our hands in the land, keep that connection, keep working the land. Because if we were to achieve our sovereignty and independence now, I think we'd be in a bad way. Capitalism and our concept of aloha aina, love for the land, is incompatible. So we recognize that, and we're struggling and striving for that. I want to say that I'm very honored, me and my family are very, very honored to host you folks. When the WIPCE called me and asked me if I wanted to do this, I was kind of hesitant, like, oh, are we capable of doing this? You know, and then they said, oh yeah, 20 people, oh yeah, we can do that. And then later on, as we realized that the detour would be coming, it was a no-brainer that we have to include the detour as the final stop. And then we went from 20 to 45. And I was like, holy shit. And so what I did yesterday was I called all my drinking buddies and bought a couple cases of beer. And we set everything up and got the job done. But we're honored because this is in our vision, the purpose of this Aina, this land, is exactly for this, to host community, and to organize and to build on solidarity and cohesion amongst our own people, and of course our other indigenous brothers and sisters. So mahalo nui loa Yaoko for coming. Thank you so much. Any final words? Anyone? Camille? Anything? I don't know. We're for any time.
Give one more mahalo to our mea ai kani.
Yay!
You know you got good friends when you call them at the drop of a dime, and I'm on my way. Mahalo to Brother Aika and to Kamu and Brandon and brothers and friends who came and helped. Lawful. There's no way we could have done this without just the help of a bunch of buddies. Terry, closing words, Kyle?